having now. SITA is supposed to be a leader in resolving this problem it is a victim of now. So that if we take that serious, then the MTT intervention came to the fore. SITA's failure to respond to their customers' IT requirements, Chair, indeed affected various departments' service delivery obligations to South Africans. It is worth noting that the MTT started its work in December, when most government departments and entities, including SITA, were about to close for the festive break. However, the task team managed to get a significant amount of work done during that time, and it continued as the officials resumed after holidays. The acting MD and the chair will speak to this matter in detail and what they discovered in as far as capacity, in as far as skills profile, in as far as how behind the systems of the institutions are, which is supposed to lead this country into the digital era, which is supposed to lead the digital transformation and so on. Maybe the chair will correct this if I'm wrong. At some stage, they would have discovered that the rate of use of government, of e-government services, is about 100 and something thousand in a country of about 60 million people, which by comparative standards, it's quite unacceptable. Now, the chair, I hope you will share this, how they are moving forward in as far as, what are their plans in as far as dealing with this matter, because if millions of people have access to government e-services, naturally costs are reduced and then turnarounds are improved. There's simplification of administrative processes, there's accountability, there's transparency. There's also a huge opportunities for monetization by government, because the private sector can discover that in government system, no less than 30 million people are making use. It's a platform to which their products can be exposed. It's a revenue for government. So we said it becomes clear that SITA, we can't tolerate SITA continuing where it is. If SITA's mandate is as it is, if the value locked in the digital economy is so strong, we just can't have a strategic institution like SITA floundering. So those are the issues, Chair, that really influence my attitude as a minister, and of course working with the team in this regard. I'm going to ask the check first, the special way we're going to handle this. Check first if DG want to make any, no, I will be breaking your laws, fine. The DG will participate during the course of discussion. I will ask the chair and the acting MD to proceed. DG will come in where she wants to add issues during discussions. Chairperson, if you can take the platform with the MD. Mr. Pillay.
Thank you, Minister. Greetings to the Portfolio Committee Chair, Minister, members of the committee, DG. I'm going to put my screen on just for 2 seconds so you know that I'm vaguely human. My name is Kiruban Pala, I'm the chair of SITA. I'm going to switch my camera off and then we'll go through the presentation. I'm assuming I have rights to share. Let me do that. Thank you for the opportunity, Chair. Just as an intro, the last time we appeared in front of Portfolio Committee, we gave a view on SITA of repurposing. Very quickly, in terms of that repurposing, the focus was simply to reset back to original mandate. If we look at the SITA Act, there's three key words that jump out at us that served as our mantra or has been serving as our mantra of late, which is we must do things that cause an impact for the public in a secure manner, and we must promote the efficiency of our government. As we've been looking at that, we've kept exploring our strategy going forward, and what we find is it's logically consistent, it's aligned with industry trends and world's norms. Almost every IT organization around the planet is pretty much following the same game plan. The trick is implementation, and that is where SITA has been suffering quite significantly. And we've had quite a number of interventions to do them, to address those problems. One of the major ones is obviously the MTT work, the Ministerial Task Team to focus on procurement, which is one of the primary value streams within SITA. I'm going to run through the APP first, then reflect on some of the outcomes of some of the achievements or the positions that have been taken and show you fledgling outcomes on those, and then we'll go into the MTT profile. If I look at the performance profile of SITA, we had 18 APP items. We've introduced 3 new ones. They come directly from the Minister's Performance Compact, and those are the 3 that you see over here. And at the same time, there are 2 additional APP items which we have modified. We are changing the time on those because they are related to audit and they best match towards year end. It's the Clean Audit Program. These are the 3 that stem directly from the Minister's Compact, which we've added in, and we will track until the end of the financial year. I'll go on to the second one. The second one is looking at all the audit reports. Quick insight is, I think we lamented the last time that SITA had 5 years worth of qualified audit reports. In the last audit report set, we came out with a qualified audit report, and there were 145 audit findings. We've had a special set of war rooms that have been looking at this thing on a weekly basis. And currently we've cleared about 35 to 40% of that backlog, and the remainder we have to clear within the next 54 days so that we can get a clean audit by the end of the year. We still think the projection is possible. What's happening on the APP is simply the movement you'll see from Q2 target down to Q4, where it should be. If I look at the projected results, because obviously these modifications, the modification on time doesn't change the number 18 at all, but the modification on the 3 additional that stemming from the Minister's Compact increases our number of APP items through to 21. Before we started the program, years where we were looking at our projection, before we started all the interventions, the ones in green we thought were in the bag and we could secure those. Then there were medium risk targets, and the high risk targets, there was a low probability of achieving them. Even a 61% is still untenable. We achieved at the end of the last financial year, we came in at 44%. So we seek to obviously improve that. Now nominal target is to get at least to 80%. What we've done since then, we've been analyzing it, and here's a quick analysis of it. The number of annual targets has gone up to 21, and that's because of the addition of the 3 ministerial targets that have come into play. In terms of our low risk targets, 8 out of the 21, we see as secured and in the bag. The medium risk targets, the only reason they're medium risk because they're subject to validation, but they're well in hand as part of a normal course of business. So we do think we will achieve that, and we have enough runway space for that. The high risk targets, which require special war rooms, and they have all been activated at this point in time, is 6 of them. And we have to declare upfront, one of those 21, we cannot make that target. We will create an MVP, a minimum viable product, but it will not be the final deliverable. When we first started, when we looked at in Q4, our projection was 66%, but we are driving to get to the year end, taking into account those 3 high risk targets that we talk about, to get to 80%. That's the commitment we've given to the department and to the minister. So we will push ahead with those, and there are special war rooms for those. And we check on these every week. The net result, when you look at all of those, the green have pretty much been achieved. The medium risk targets, you'll see a lot of it. It's evidence verification that's underway. So it's the work has been done continuously over the year. So we expect that those to be secured. As they get secured, they will naturally move into the green. And securing it is not just delivering it, but also validating that the evidence is in place. The high-risk targets are these over here. The purple one is the one we cannot deliver on. You'll see it's a minimum viable product that will be achieved, but there's simply insufficient runway space, so we have to declare that up front. The high-risk targets are the subject of very special war rooms, and we aim to move as many of those into yellow and green as possible. Okay, that's a summary of the APP, and the APP is what was actually committed. Over and above that, there was Minister gave very strong guidance that, and so did the portfolio committee, in terms of practical reality. What do citizens touch and feel? So we gave an additional 5, but they're not in the APP, but we will be held accountable on it. I'll start off at the top. There were external facing deliverables. We have approximately 170 e-services, which are hidden away in a very obscure website. What we're doing is we're surfacing that onto a mobility platform, and we're trying to get utilization up to 5 million. UCC, Unified Command Center, what gets measured gets managed. We've been trying to push the number of dashboards that give us visibility of operations, not just ours, but the customer's operations. We're trying to push that up to 100. We're currently at about 83% of the way there. The broadband target we share with our colleagues we all take a different role in terms of the broadband value chain. So we share with our colleagues in Centec and in Broadband Infraco. We're also pushing efficiency in terms of specific customer departments. If a specific business process took 10 days and cost 10 Rand, then there's some technology intervention, and afterwards it's expected to cost less than 10 Rand in less than 10 days. Operational performance, we've committed that the asset test on operational performance is what our total penalty, we're willing to pay penalties. You'll see later on, we have boosted our penalty profile. It used to be we were willing to pay penalties, SITA was willing to pay penalties of up to 2.5% should it not meet contractual targets. That number has now gone up to 20%. And the net result is if we can keep that to industry norms of below 0.5%, then we align with industry norms. Those are the external ones where customers actually will touch and feel the impact of SITA in outcomes terms. In the background, we still have to get a lot of our basic hygiene components in place. So our APP, I've explained that, we will move from 44 to a number greater than 80%. We will achieve an unqualified audit opinion. The procurement process efficiencies in terms of time, volume, and money. There'll be a lot more exposition on this as the MD gives a view of what the MTT has achieved. There's internal rationalizations as we address legacy systems, and that's measured primarily in terms of money and volume. We're talking old abandoned licenses, we're talking underutilized servers, equipment, underutilized systems, so we're looking at that rationalization. And lastly is the macro strategy alignment. From all the different work that was done previously, EGOV, Fourth Industrial Revolution, they came out with quite a number of recommendations, and we are matching directly back to those recommendations. As in order to achieve these internal components, the enablers, and the external ones, there's a lot of work been happening. You'll see some of the bad side of that work, but it starts with discovery. The only way we can improve ourselves being alcoholics is by declaring we're alcoholics up front. Then we can solve the problem. So there's capacitization challenges as we implement the device business model definition. There's legacy issues lasting 25 years that we have to clean up. I'll show you the progress on it. So we're not just lamenting them, we are actually doing something about them. And then it's significant levels of coordination and teamwork that's required, especially from the project management office. Aligning with key clients, we'll show you some of the work on the MTT as well as on our operational profile. So we've been driving operationally over and above the APPs, and here are some of the indicators. They're not exhaustive. There's just a sample that we put forward. We started tracking our client escalations who were complaining, and we started actively. At one stage, we didn't know what they were. That's why these numbers were low. Eventually, we understood what they were, and the important part is that the yellow line goes down, which is the number of escalations. We track it weekly, and As the yellow line goes down, the green line goes up, and we don't see any more red coming in. Some of these custom escalations go back up to 5 years. So we are killing them. For some reason, they fell through the cracks in the past. That's obviously intolerable. Nothing can fall through the cracks. So everything is tracked and managed. Doesn't mean we're on our way to, it hopefully means we're on our way to perfection, but it follows the principle, what gets measured gets managed. So the key takeaway here is we are actively managing our custom escalations, horrible as they might be. But the upside is the resolution trend is positive. The solutions are known. They're normal industry level solutions. Digitizing government services. I mentioned we have 170 e-services. The entire objective here is to try and get government on a phone so that people can transact and interact with government, engage with government from the safety of their homes instead of having to take taxis, public transport, stand in long queues. So we've been tracking our numbers. Our numbers are still abysmally low. Total number of users registered, 313. But we had 13,000 registering in December. That's the total number of users. And unfortunately, that's only 2.4% of our population. That number should be closer to 80, 90% of our population, same as the way with the banking and cellular numbers are. So we have been slowly increasing that. Other countries have got far better gains. So when we compare ourselves against them, we are pretty much about 10 to 15 years behind them. We've simply reflected on the most consumed services and the least consumed services, and obviously we aim to push utilization up. This is simply, or this slide puts forward, and you can focus on the black writing at the bottom. At least we understand how many systems we've had. We've gone through inventory audits, so at least we know how big our universe is, how big our nightmare is, and how we're categorizing them and which ones we're planning for modernization. We will work through the budget challenges and the like in due course. When it comes to security and the UCC, or Intelligent Operating Center dashboards, the critical thing here is what gets measured gets managed. So that's our objective, simply to have that visibility of our environment as well as the customer environment, and we putting forward our dominant leg is security. Right now, we have implemented 100 client dashboards, and that progress sitting at 82%. So it is reasonably a way there. We have been pushing security campaigns to make sure that everyone gives security the priority it requires. So this program will still continue. Again, these are not end outcomes. What we're showing you, and hopefully you take confidence, that at least we're on the right journey. We're drinking slightly less than we used to. Then when it comes to service penalties, we've been analyzing our penalty profile, and the important thing is we are willing to increase our penalties to, here we go, the sentence over here, increasing our current SLA penalties from 2.5 to 20%. If SITA is doing something wrong and not meeting a contractual commitment, then by rights it should pick up paying, and penalty is a paying indicator. These are not cash transactions. They'll come up in the form of service credits, but at least we will comply with our service level agreements, and we're giving our service level agreements teeth that customers can hold us accountable for that. The entire program will be completed by the end of March. So it does take a bit of time to issue all the amendments on service level agreements and to tighten up the measurement thereof. There's been a lot of concerns in the past in terms of service pricing. This is a philosophical decision SITA has taken. We've started doing benchmarking in the background, and we'll package into our pricing process. The original SITA methodology was very much cost plus based, and that didn't give a basis to change the cost structure. There wasn't an appropriate incentive to change the cost structure. What we're now doing is evolving our pricing to be market-based, market matching, as a minimum market matching. Then the justifications and debates happen whether we're entitled to charge a premium above market for special services or a discount from market because of customer production of volumes. Those are the elements that get taken into account, but this is a commitment that has been put on the table. Obviously, that like for like or better is based on the most favored nations clause, which is a standard telco level clause. Here, what I've been trying to do is then show you what's been happening with the APP and its evolution, which is based in short version. It was 18 APPs. We've increased that to 21 because of the ministerial commitment. We've modified 2 of the targets in terms of time, not in terms of quantum. I've then shown you the outcome of that. We started at 44% and we have every desire to get to 80%. There are plans in place and God willing, we will achieve those. Then I've shown you, given you indication that the repurposing plan of SITA, nothing has changed. However, its implementation that's been the focus, and I've shown you some fledgling fruits of that implementation. We do see our technical trend profiles, operational profiles getting slightly better, slightly cleaner over time. That is on the tech side. Then on the process side, it comes to the ministerial task team, and one of the main value chains is obviously the procurement value chain. So there was a specific, the board just never got around to it, and the minister preempted that by creating the ministerial task team because of the number of escalations that came through from various government departments. The detail of that, I will leave it to the MD to take you through it, which will reflect on the achievements or the findings, the achievements, and what the plan is going forward. MD, I'll continue to drive for you if you just tell me to advance the slides as required. MD?
Thank you so much, Board Chair. Good evening, Minister, Chair of the Portfolio Committee, and members. Good evening to you, colleagues, as well. Chair, assist me. Let's move on to the next slide. I will take the meeting through the presentation as compiled by the Ministerial Task Team. I'm doing this on their behalf. Just as a way of a background, as members may already know that in December last year, the Minister appointed the Ministerial Task Team to look at the challenges, especially the procurement backlogs afflicting SITA, and to find, alternative ways of enhancing how SITA performs its business. This came about after various engagements with the board, stakeholders, but also after the minister had been receiving various complaints from other ministries and from the provinces generally, that SITA is not, adding value and is not assisting them in fulfilling their various mandates. Now, SITA's failure to respond to their customers' IT requirements has had service delivery implications and has affected the country broadly in terms of, services to the citizens, government services, and just efficiencies in how government performs its responsibilities. Now, the MTT, as indicated, came into office in December, worked flat out throughout December, and right at the beginning of this year, up to this point, the emphasis and focus throughout was that much time should rather not be spent on the analysis, but rather on executing recommendations of how to change the situation in consultation with the board and the department. The next slide, Chair. The following two slides just cover, this one just covers some of the challenges, that the task team observed within the entity, and they lay a base, therefore, for the recommendations and some of the programs that are currently being, executed. The MTT found that the turnaround times, in the supply chain space at SITA is extremely slow and long, and that it's difficult to understand why things are like this. That the capacity, both in terms of skills and human resources within the procurement space is rather wanting, and there are glaring vacancies, and the skills of those that are there seem to be limited, and all of that. And that SITA's management, Chair, with your respect, seems to have allowed, the procurement department to operate manually. This, absence of an electronic procurement system, has affected efficiency, but also has led to unnecessary error and mistakes, if not outright manipulation of the manual system. And we found that that was a bit, deliberate in certain instances. Also, the MTT found that some tenders right at an advanced stage after a long drawn process of going through various committees get cancelled. And when we inquired about the reasons, we were told that in most instances it's about a wrong specification and this and that. Items which we would have expected them to be covered and attended to right at the beginning of the process, so that after probity and all these other steps, there is a greater level of comfort that everything has been above board and attended to accordingly. The MTT also made an observation that lack of accountability and proper reporting, especially to clients who submit their matters to SITA, does affect and strain the relationship. That, for example, once you submit an item to SITA, you hardly ever get some response. You hardly ever get to know where your submission is at, unless you know someone at SITA and you interact with that person accordingly, which is not a good way of doing things. But absence of consequence management seem to have favored this kind of an environment, which is a problem for everyone. The lack of transparency, within the procurement space in the organization, seems to have, been a deliberate ploy to hide some of the irregularities, committed by officials. And at least for now, this has led to some suspensions and some disciplinary, cases that are being conducted currently. The absence of proactiveness in managing current contracts has led to a situation where there's unpredictability, there's cost overruns, where there are situations where contracts are extended on a month-to-month basis because there's no long-term planning. There's no early warning system that indicates which contracts are coming to an end, and therefore interventions are made accordingly. The findings that were made by the Auditor General seem to be too many, seem to be repetitive, and most of them occur year in, year out without being resolved, especially around some procurement irregularities. And for us, this, was basically some indication that some members within the organization, some staff members within the organization might be reluctant to change or actually even resisting change efforts. That's why various boards would be frustrated because they make good recommendations, but a little execution. The board, in terms of corporate governance, cannot intervene in some of these issues. Actually, some people have been quick to jump and claim that the board is being operational, when in actual fact, they are hiding from scrutiny and oversight, by the board. We said that has got to be attended to and addressed, and alternative arrangements to ensure that proper oversight is exercised by the board have to be, put in place. Now, having observed some of these, there are others, that perhaps we thought were not elevate them to this committee because they are day-to-day items that the MTT can address through interventions and interactions with management. Some of the recommendations that were made, by the MTT, which are already being executed, some of them, was firstly, as members would know, that there's the chief procurement officer was suspended and there's a consequence management process being followed. So to ensure that things don't fall, apart, an acting chief procurement officer, has been appointed to better transform that space and make sure that all the challenges that are there are being attended to with urgency. Secondly, there's been a recommendation that there has to be some skills review to make sure that people who manage procurement issues are well equipped, well qualified, have the technical know-how to guide the process so that there are no cancellations, there are no delays, and there are no irregularities. And there are also measures in line with that are being, effected. The board has appointed an acting MD to coordinate all these interventions to improve the APP, to transform SITA, to attend to all these procurement backlogs, but to also set SITA on a pedestal towards better performance and improvement in how it relates to various, departmental stakeholders. The next point, has been that of appointment of additional capacity, service providers in the supply chain process to assist in processing all the backlog items, but also to conduct probity on those items that are being processed, so that at no given point there are unmanageable, backlogs within that space. The MTT has also, beyond this, identified the top 10, the next slide, sure, has identified the top 10 clients of SITA, acknowledging, of course, that everyone is important, everyone has to be serviced, all the issues have to be attended to with speed. The MTT identified the top 10, 11 in that slide, departments whose items have to be attended as a matter of speed in the short term, and beyond identifying these top 10 clients, there's already been, initiatives to engage them. For example, all the departments within the criminal justice cluster were prioritized, and the MTT interacted with them, and there's a plan in the short term to resolve issues coming from that cluster by working through colleagues, in that cluster, pulling them into a war room, to a special arrangement where they will be involved, guided, of course, and supervised by SITA in processing their urgent items, before the end of March. There's been an agreement with the various DGs, and in that space, the MTT has also made arrangements. I think MTT members are in the Western Cape, are in Cape Town tomorrow, to meet the Premier and all the departments to look at all their issues and present to them a list of recommendations in terms of how to resolve their issues. So the meeting won't be just about listening, but to discuss resolution of all the items that were presented by the Premier in a letter that he had written to the Minister. We've just seen another letter from the Minister of Home Affairs wanting to meet the MTT about items from that department, which is also a welcome development. The other appointments that have been made are with the South African Police, with the Department of Health in Limpopo, with the Department of Labor, with the Government Pension Administration Agency, and the Department of Defense. Those are the initial departments that the MTT has scheduled meetings with over the next 2 weeks. And beyond that, there will be interactions with various other provinces. Just in conclusion, Chair, to say to members, besides the short-term assignment of a procurement turnaround, the MTT is looking at a long-term sustainability of SITA. And accordingly, the need for the business model review has been identified. The need to review the funding model has been identified. The skills review and ensuring the required competences, within the various divisions at SITA, is an issue that is on the pipeline. MTT has recommended, and management has, worked on it already, that there be a dashboard, of all items from the initial stage of a department requesting SITA to undertake a specific assignment up right to the end. So it's a 10-key kind of a dashboard solution, so that departments and clients would know exactly at what stage their issues are. They can track these over time, and whenever there are delays, or variances in terms of what is planned and what is being done, there would be immediate escalations to avoid what is being resolved happening again in the future. And then lastly, Chair, and in conclusion, the issue around the leadership and the organizational culture within the entity is another area that the MTT would be addressing, as they proceed with the exercise and assignment. Thank you so much, Chairperson. And I've said that this is in complement to the presentation you made earlier on, and this is meant not to be a standalone, but to reinforce, the meeting of the APP targets. Thank you so much.
Thank you, MD. Before we go to the chair to take over his meeting, which the space he gives to us more than usual. I thought that letter, Honorable Chair, of Minister Mtsoaledi, I'll tell you why it's an indication of a positive development. The way his department has been frustrated by SITA, in the recent time, he wanted to have nothing to do with SITA. I want to argue that because of these new developments, he says he wants to meet the MTT and find a mutual beneficial solution. It's an indication that people are beginning to feel the positive intentions of the MTT. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I will now be opening for members who would want to contribute clarity questions. Anything else? To see Honorable Mlala. It's one. Putline is two. So those are the hands I have at the moment. And then I'll ask you to proceed. Yes.
Thanks, Chair. And I must also appreciate the presentation from both the Ministerial and the chairperson of the board as introduced by the Minister. But Chair, maybe I'm a pessimist, or you see, Chair, I'm a bit worried about the interface between the court judgment and what we are doing today, because I don't want Parliament to be dragged into the dispute between SITA and the department. Now, I was listening very carefully when the Minister was introducing the chairperson of the board. And I don't know if Parliament has got all the information on record that the matter has been appealed, and therefore Parliament will not be cited in the dispute. I really appreciate the presentation. I don't have any issue with the presentation, but I'm just concerned that this issue must not in any way drag Parliament, because then we'll have to account to the Chief Whip, to the Speaker, whether, because in law, there's nothing called ignorance of the law. You can't justify that you did not know, and that's the reason why you took certain decisions. So I'm saying maybe before we get into the details, can the chair or the minister clarify this issue for me, so that I don't get involved in a discussion that will end up somehow. I'm not saying I do have confidence in the minister, but I'm just cautious that this process, has it been clarified at the committee level, so that maybe somehow in the earlier meeting, because I was in and out, it was clarified. But my conscience says, can we go back to this issue so that I'm clear where I'm sitting, Chair? I don't want to be part of a process I can't explain. And I'm not saying I'm doubting any process. All I'm saying is, can it be clarified for the purpose of our record that the ministry has demonstrated that indeed there's an appeal which has in return suspended the decision of the court, so that we don't become somehow entangled in that dispute, because that's Parliament has got nothing to do with that dispute. And so it can then be dragged through the window. So, Chair, if I could be clarified, then I can get into the discussion of the presentation, because my biggest concern is that Minister raised an important issue of a ministerial task team, which in my view was supposed to present as a task team, because it does not in any way replace the board. But once the board chair is introduced, then we must get if the legal people from parliament are there, they can also advise, so that I don't want a situation where we are cited and later on we are told we were not aware. No, I don't want that, Chair. So please, can we get clarity before we proceed with the discussion? Thanks.
Let me then take Honorable Bodlani. I would ask the Minister to get back to this, and maybe after that clarity, if there's a follow-up, would then have. Unless Honorable Bodlani wants to waive the right to start now, and we just get a direct response and clarity, then Honorable Mlala can ask further questions if he's got further questions on the presentation.
Chairperson, maybe to augment the point that Honorable Mulala makes, and I think as the Minister answers the questions that Honorable Mulala asks, it is for myself personally what the court judgment means. I understand it totally different to how the Minister understands it. And maybe on our side, we could also just get a legal opinion. And Honorable Mulala puts it eloquently to say we do not want to be cited as having entertained an illegitimate body. But let me also pause there so that the Minister can just give guidance.
Okay. Let me get back to the Minister. Make a comment after.
Well, thank you, Honorable Chair. I thought one attempted to deal with this matter in the morning. But however, if the committee feels that we should continue, it's okay. What we are saying, honorable members, as you all know, the judgment is not in favor of the decision we took in July last year. But what are we saying about the judgment? We say, having analyzed the judgment with the senior counsel, we all came to a view that the order of the judge is unimplementable. But before I go there, we're saying the point is that by convention, when appeal documents are filed, the order is suspended, unless there's something exceptional to the contrary. So we showed in the morning here, appeal documents have been filed. We can email them to the portfolio committee because I don't think they are a secret. They've been filed and both served to the relevant institution of appeal by the state attorney, at the same time to those who are challenging, to the legal people who are actually leading those who are challenging. So filing has been done. Now I'm saying by convention, this then suspends the order, unless something exceptional to the contrary has happened, which you are waiting for. This is not a new thing to appeal a judgment that you disagree with, unless you are just being weird or filibustering the law. But if you appeal it on clear terms, usually it's not a big deal. But I want to say, again, I want to repeat, like I said in the morning, at the risk of discussing the marriage, which I don't think it is correct, but just to allow the committee to look at this thing through the window. We are saying, Chair, these are facts, it's not even opinion. We are saying the current order is directing us to suspend an interim board. We are saying, Chair, there is no interim board. The current board has been fully appointed to spend the normal period, and that appointment has been confirmed by cabinet. So the board we have is fully appointed duly by cabinet. It's not an interim board. The order says suspend an interim board. If you can look at the judgment, I think it's paragraph 2, it says suspend interim board. Now it says suspend the removal of the board that was in place during July. We are saying again, is that there's only 3 directors out of the board. I think there were about 14, I'm just forgetting the number now, who challenged our decision. Only 3. All others, chair, resigned. They resigned, and there's a record of acceptance of their resignation. So in other words, immediately others resign, you left with 3 board. There is no board in terms of the law. But these 3 challenged because they have view that our decision was wrong, and the judgment has reached what it has reached. So these 2 facts render the order unimplementable. There's a lot of other facts that are argued in the submission, which I said I will be reluctant to actually sit here and elaborate on a number of other issues. And we want to, and again, maybe as a matter of fact, the fact that there's a permanent board that was tabled in terms of our records. So in law, what has been duly instituted by proper institutions, you do not put something on top of it without removing it. If the judge said, remove that permanent board, we would be talking something different. So this, as a matter of fact, render the order unimplementable. With best intentions, if you wanted to implement it, let me just give you an example. This board is duly appointed, and they signed contracts with government. They were appointed by an appropriate structure called cabinet. If you remove them, not all of them will leave when they are convinced that the way you are removing them is illegal also. So the judgment has to be such that it is implementable. Against those background and other, of course, different views on the thinking, it is being appealed. And I'm saying I don't want to go to the details. There's quite a lot, Chair, on this on the appeal. So the point is, this board, you can write a letter to the executive. In terms of the executive, it's a properly appointed board by a duly qualified structure, which is the cabinet. And the judgment speaks about an interim board, which we don't have. And the judgment speaks about the suspension of a board, or suspension of the removal of a board which does not exist. Because you remove a board when you remove that 11 or 10. But here what got removed was 3 people because others had resigned. So I'm not sure if it explains anything. Appeal has been filed. The grounds of appeal have been articulated, and I'm generally satisfied with the way. And I'm saying appeal is a normal exercise in the adjudication of disputes. Thanks, Chair.
I will then go back to Honorable Lala and Honorable Bulan.
Chair, I think I want to apologize to the media. I don't think our question was about the merits of the case, because I don't think we want to be part of that process as Parliament. But maybe apologize in advance if the minister understood me to be meaning that they have not appealed or what. The point I'm raising, Chair, is simple. For the purpose of us as Parliament, I'm not saying we don't trust that the minister has appealed or he has not appealed. But I'm saying tactically the minister could have just allowed the ministerial trustee to proceed, because if we say an appeal is a process, it's not just an event, and I don't want a situation where we are cited, and I'm saying, so that as Parliament, at least we understand what the minister is saying. We respect the process of appeal, and so on. But I don't think as Parliament we can, for instance, go to the register of court and prove that the minister has indeed appealed, or I don't think we can do that. All I'm saying is that for the sake of us as Parliament, at least for this meeting, because this is the first meeting after the judgment, maybe the chair should rule in that regard, so that tomorrow we are not part of that dispute either way. So for me, getting into the details of the judgment will require parliamentary legal service to advise us as a committee on a situation like we are now, because I don't want to say maybe create a perception that I don't believe what the minister said, but I'm saying I'm just being cautious that even if appeal has been lodged as Parliament, because we are not legal people, is it not wise that perhaps, because this is done on record? You see, my biggest challenge is that if it's done on record, it can definitely be cited in court. I'll just give a simple example. If papers are filed tomorrow, and today we are in a meeting, and then in a meeting we're told, okay, these are papers, they are filed, and then the other party goes back to court and said, but the department is undermining the order, and we can demonstrate that. So we will ultimately be involved in a process that we are not supposed to. So I'm saying, with due respect, can Parliament then advise in this regard? If there's legal people from Parliament, can they advise? Because I may be limited in terms of legal processes, but I really would not appreciate a situation where we are dragged into court matters that does not involve Parliament. And I'm not saying, Minister, please get into the details why you think the judgment is incorrect. It's fine, that we appreciate. And it's the right of the ministry to challenge whatever they feel is unfair to them. But I'm speaking on behalf of us who are on the other side of the table. And if members of the committee are satisfied that indeed we may proceed with the chairperson of the board after the judgment, because we may have read the judgment differently. So that's why I don't want to talk about the judgment, because it might mean something to me, it might mean something to Honorable Botlana, it might mean something to the various legal counsel may have different interpretation in terms of the judgment. But the point I'm raising, Chair, is that maybe you should rule so that we don't beat on one issue, so that are we agreeing that we are placing this meeting on record with the chairperson of the board of SITA? If we agree, I rest my case, but at least I've raised my concern. That's the point I'm raising, Chair. And if there were legal people, I would say let them come in and advise, so that we also understand the appeal process. How does it go? Because it's not, for instance, automatic that if you have appealed, therefore everything else stops, because we may not know what the other party is doing. For instance, you can appeal and the other one can enforce the order. then there's a contest between the two. And then what happens to the judgment in between? You can't then say, I've appealed, and then that one can still say, no, I've enforced the order because I believe the minister is not willing to implement the order. And then it's another debate. So I don't want us to get into the legal processes. I'm not a lawyer. All I'm saying is, Chairperson, can you advise? Or if they're legal people, can they advise us as Parliament? Because now I'm speaking on behalf of Parliament. I don't want to get involved with the ministry. The ministry has presented, we are satisfied with their explanation. But I'm saying, Chair, on record, what would be your ruling on this matter so that we don't get entangled? Because if we get entangled, it will also implicate you, Chair, that there's nothing in law that says ignorance of the law. There's nothing like that in law. You can't say I did not know, therefore I proceeded on the assumption. No, it doesn't work that way in law. In law, there's no ignorance. If a judgment is there, then we must be cautious on our part. So that's what I'm saying, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Mulala. I'm not sure if Honorable Bodlana would want to come in at this point before I get in.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Chairperson, Honorable Lisiba Mulala has really taken the words out of my mouth. And I think the essence of this is that at the core of it, I think we all understand this court judgment differently. And the point I raised was to say, can we just maybe receive the report that were the presentations that were made by the MTT and the board, whether interim or permanent, as information, and we pause and we get the Parliament legal team to guide us so that Mr. Honorable Lisiba uses the word so that we do not get ourselves entangled. And this is with great appreciation of how the minister receives the judgment and his conviction that an appeal means that we can carry on. But also myself, I'm not comfortable with just carrying on in the absence of being guided by some legal advice, notwithstanding what the Honorable Minister has already said, that his advice comes from a senior counsel. But I think we will all sleep better knowing that we have not flouted any process by ignoring what is in front of the court. And for all we know, the court tomorrow might come back and correct itself and says we appreciate that it was not an interim board. It is what the board. So mine is to say, Chairperson, can we pause and get advice from the legal teams, and if at all, for the sake of the work that has been done this evening, we receive the presentations and the report as information. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Minister, I see your hand is up. I want to get in now and give direction.
Thank you, Chair. No. Chair, let me say this point. As the SITA has been called by the Portfolio Committee to present, to account, and there's a judgment, there's an intervening judgment in the period. We're explaining ourselves the nature of the judgment. Now, maybe before I get there, Chair, even SITA has got similar opinion from a different senior counsel on the matter. Maybe it needs to be forwarded once it's done. That when appeal is filed, I said by convention, the judgment is suspended. Now, let me say, Chair, we are in clear conscience, clear that we are not messing up the committee. We didn't call ourselves. We know when you call us, we come to account. I want to argue that it is a duty of the committee to actually reach a determination. But on the executive side, we are comfortable with regard to what has happened. But we respect the right of the committee to reach a particular determination on the matter. I think there's nothing more, Chair, I can do on this matter. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, you can lower your hand so that I'm not intimidated.
Okay, I'll do that. Okay, I'll do that. It's done.
So that I'm not intimidated that you are calling an order to the chair. so lower the hand.
I won't do that.
Lower the hand, Minister. I'm not sure whether Honorable Mutagane, as you raised the hand, I've seen that you've now lowered it. Can I then proceed?
Chair.
Unless you really wanted to speak before.
Chair.
Yes, Honorable Mutagane.
Chair, I tried really to raise it, but unfortunately, it is lowered by itself. I want just to raise the issue, comrade, that, or honorable members, that we are the one who invited the department to come and account to us. My view, comrade, that we must allow the department to give all necessary information. Based on the information that they have given us, we can then assess as a committee. I don't think Comrade Chair is going to head the Parliament if we allow the discussion that has already taken place. We are not expected to take a decision on the matter that is before court that has been appealed, but it's just for information for us as a legislature to hold the executive accountable for their action or not actions. I think we should accept from the chair that we allow the minister and the department to give all necessary information. If we need to have clarity in terms of the law, surely, Comrade Chair, many of us are limited because we don't know the law, despite the fact that we are lawmakers. I think we should just bear in mind that the presentation by the department won't harm us as a legislature if we are not going to take decision on the matter that has been raised, that is in court, but we are listening to attentively for the reason and the merit of the issue that have been raised before. I do think, Chair, we should continue with that and avoiding taking decision that can therefore completely put our name. Then when we are cited in court, as Mlala was saying, I thought you'll be only be cited in court if we have taken a decision, but listening to information could never be the reason why we should be in court and be cited on that. I'm saying this is a layman understanding. It's not necessarily a legal issue. I just think, Comrade Chair, politically, we should allow the minister to continue the department on the matter. And then ourselves, we can have a thorough discussion, maybe with the assistance of the legal team of Parliament, on how to deal with this matter. That would be my view, Comrade Chair, on the matter on the table. Thanks very much.
Honorable Dagan, almost close to what was raised by Honorable Bolan on the information side of things. But I just thought we should just explain ourselves as we started with this in the morning. It was out of caution that we could not proceed on the matter of SITA until there is confirmation that indeed the appeal that the minister referred to would have been lodged. And again, it was on the basis that of that understanding, probably would differ with that understanding that once there's an appeal, indeed it suspends the implementation of that action until the appeal is heard. So that's what would have been the understanding. And therefore took a break, and the minister came back, like I'm saying, at least these meetings are recorded to be able to pick up in a video clip that before we went to the meeting, to the item on the GCIS, he was ready to give feedback that indeed there's confirmation that that would have been done. And on the basis of that, we then said we'll then take up the matters in the meeting as it resumes at 6 o'clock. However, in between that, we will also be doing consultations, which is now formal. In the opening of this meeting that we have resumed, I've said the following, honorable members. You can check that in the clip also. That at a formal level, there's been interaction with the PLO of the minister to try and source the documents. Now this is the formal process, so as to give legal the opportunity to look at those, because legal would have had the judgment with them. And by the time of getting to the meeting, those documents would have not been received. And therefore, it means that what legal would have worked on will only be the judgment, which makes it inconclusive. So you cannot put it as opinion to the meeting unless you're putting even legal under the bus when they've made it clear that it's inconclusive, because they also need to look at what is being raised in the appeal process and then advised accordingly. So I've stated that as we started the meeting. And I said, because we have convened this meeting long before that, and we have been submitted, we have received documents, but over and above it was that we are not looking only at the revised APP of a few slides. The meeting of the 12th of December, where the minister also committed to come back and report to the committee on the interventions that they are doing in SITA. So not just the board, but as the department in the ministry. So try to clarify that point. And of course, I indicated that we would expect the minister, probably the DG, and the entity oversight, as well as people that are looking at the interventions, so-called the ministerial task team. And I take that not to the board, but a task team as it was presented here. And the minister would have presented that the acting MD comes out of that MTT intervention and therefore considered a person to be coming outside of the SITA environment. By environment, I mean the employer. But bring somebody who would look at these things afresh so that those interventions are made. And I think that's the information shared with us here today. So I thought I should clarify that point. But in the presentation, the minister's understanding, as I said, remains what he said, that this suspense and therefore the status quo remains. For that reason, would ask the board to still present. Right. Now, the question we must deal with, so that we know where Parliament then comes in, so that we're not cited, is that the matter before the courts is not about the action taken by Parliament to appoint a board, but by the executive. And the minister used the words in this meeting that I exercise my oversight as the law requires me to do so. So which takes us out of that as Parliament. And therefore, if it takes us out as Parliament, it means the body that is being tasked to deal with the matter in court is the minister, who had responded. There's no response of Parliament, even in the court, because Parliament is not cited, but it's a matter of the executive, whether former minister or current, as you read the judgment. And this executive then says, yeah, the appeal documents of appeal to believe on the status quo. So we took it and believed in the bona fides of the minister that everything else that has been done correctly. And I want to allege a fear that at least the chair would not be dragged into it, in that it is the executive that is charged with this. And if there has been any chance that were misled, if that was to exist, as Parliament, that we now entertain a situation where the board is here and we seem to be taking a side in a court dispute matter. That will still go back to you, Minister, because then it would have meant that Parliament was misled that there's an appeal when that appeal doesn't exist, which then suspends in that way. So it will still come back to that. Not necessarily that would have broken any law as Parliament, because we're not endorsing any board. This is one of those boards that are not appointed by Parliament, but by the executive. So we don't really make such input on who's appointed, who's not appointed. So I think what is clear from us is that we have received the reports from the MTT on what is happening. We have received the report from the ministry that we asked to come and also brief us about interventions they are doing in SITA. And as the intervening person that comes in as an MT would have indicated, that the revised APP is looked at from a point of those interventions in an integrated way. So that's what we have before us. We don't have to endorse the board. That's not our role. So we're not endorsing the board. We have given the minister the space to account to the committee in that way. So it's not for us. So as it relates to the board, whether we'll invite the board then in the future, given what has now come out as the court issue, this is where then the legal advice we need from the Parliament legal on how we engage SITA now as an entity with the board going forward. And that advice, unfortunately, even if they were to be on the platform now, they would not be able to give that advice without looking at the documents as they would have requested. There's commitment from the minister that he has got the documents, and these documents are not a secret, and that I think by now they could be sent to our portfolio committee support so that they are sent to legal, and legal can write an opinion the same way that SITA may have gone and asked for an opinion, but we also need ours. And that will then clarify the relationship that Parliament would have with that board of SITA if we were to convene them to come before Parliament. So we have not taken a decision to support any. We are not the ones that are appealing the decision. It is the minister, the appointing authority of that board, not Parliament, right? So this is the understanding I have, honorable members, so that we, like Honorable Mlala said, we shouldn't even discuss the merits of the appeal, whether there are grounds or no grounds for the appeal, because we'll read that judgment from a different understanding, and the others would come to a different conclusion. And I think that's why legal minds are there to look at everything else, whether they are opposing or they are for a particular decision. So we'd refer to legal once these documents have been received and be advised as it relates to how we relate to the SITA board, given this that has been raised when they come before the committee. Otherwise, in as far as the information is concerned, Minister, my understanding is that even the members who have raised issues, they are not raising the issue about the information shared with the committee, because that's what is important, and they wanted to hear what progress is being made on the service delivery side of SITA. However, the issue has just been about the legalities, and the people who can help us clearer on that will be legal minds, and will do so even after this meeting. Once we have the opinion that is put by our legal people, we'll also share with members, including the ministry, so that you understand what will inform our attitude going forward with regard to the SITA board and how it will account from time to time to the committee. This is how I want honorable members to clarify and summarize the way we need to move forward on this, so that we do not make it our item, the legal challenge of whether going to court, appealing or not appealing, and leave it to the relevant authority that must do so. So that will be my response. Honorable Mulala asked that probably the chair must also come in and rule on the matter. So taking into account what he phrased, Honorable Mutakane, Honorable Bodlani, and having listened to the presentations of the minister and the team, that's how I would want to wrap up on this item. But I would want to check if you, because you may think you are speaking to people when you are not even yet, given the connectivity issues that we may have. But that's really the line I would want to take. And as I say, for everything I've said, at least the meetings are recorded. You can look at the clips. Is that an order, Honorable Minister?
No, I thought the only way I can signal to you if I want to say something is to press this thing, Chair.
So, no, I just wanted to be sure that it's an order that is summarized.
No, Chair.
But like I'm saying, also trying to check if members agree that we leave it at this point. You can come in, Minister.
I'm not sure whether I should wait for the members to respond, Chair. So I must not come as disrespecting the committee.
Yeah, maybe they don't want to speak and then you speak after them, because you'll then open up the discussion.
Oh, so I should speak now.
To raise it now.
No.
Members.
No, thank you.
No.
No, Chair, all I wanted to say, I feel comfortably guided by your remarks. That's all I wanted to say. I will abide by the trust of your remarks, whatever we're actually asked to do. Thank you so much, Chair.
Honorable Dagan.
No, Honorable Chair, I think your summary of the discussion on the matter is assisting us to move forward. And then I think I can live with it. It is taking us a step forward. I think we should accept it as a summary of the meeting, because I can share what I was saying in person, that we are not expected to take any decision. We are only cited in court if you took decisions. We are not taking any decision. We are listening attentively for the presentation by the minister and the team. And I think the summary share that we have presented is very, very helpful. I bear in mind, of course, that there will always be differences of interpretation by legal minds. I accept that, Chair, but I think the manner in which you have tried to summarize the real issues of concern in the meeting, I think we have done it well. I think we should accept that, Chair, as our view as a committee on the matter that was presented by the minister on us. Thank you, Chair.
Any other view?
Chair, thanks. I think let's not reopen the meeting. I thought you have summarized and we emphasizing your summary. I don't think it's helpful. You have summarized as the chair of the meeting all the discussion. We have all inclusive. So for me, let's not reopen the discussion, because the more you allow us to speak, we may be tempted to respond to some of the issues raised after you have summarized, and that might prolong the meeting unnecessarily. So, Chair, I'm proposing that we close the meeting, Chair.
We close the item. Yes.
Yes.
Not the meeting. We have one item, which there was no objection that we put it to the meeting, which is the CASA appointment. Our response to the Speaker's office. Mr. Ngoma. We thank you, Honorable Minister. If you also want to be excused and him, you can.
So no, I wanted to check that so we can leave.
Yes, this is a matter of the committee.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair.
Mr. Ngoma.
Good afternoon. Good evening, Chair, and good evening to members. I'm just trying to share the documents, Chair. If you can just give me a moment. I'm just trying to put up the report on the screen. Thank you, Chair. Yes, Chairperson, this is a report of the Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies on the appointment of a councillor of the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa, which is ICASA Council, dated 6 February 2024. The Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies, having considered the letter of the Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies recommending appointment of Mr. Mutibi Ramusi in terms of Section 5 of the CASA Act 2000, referred to it by the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly for consideration and reports as follows. A letter was received from the Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies informing the National Assembly that after analyzing the current skill set of the Council alongside the qualifications and experiences of the recommended candidates, he recommends Mr. Mutibi Ramusi for appointment as per requirements of Section 51BA of the ICASA Act 2000, Act number 13 of 2000, as amended. On 6 February 2024, the committee met to consider and deliberate on the minister's letter and resolved to support the recommendation of the minister to appoint Mr. Mutibi Ramusi as a councillor of ICASA in terms of ICASA Act 2000, Act 13 of 2000. Report for information. Thank you, Chair. That's the report of the committee. As you had earlier indicated, Chair, all the communication between the minister, the speaker, and the speaker to the chairperson and the committee was shared with the members. Thank you so much.
That's a report, honorable members. May I check if any corrections want to make or comments before we get a mover and seconder? So I take it it reflects what you would want to send as your report. Can I then get a mover and seconder for adoption of this report? We'll send to the speakers. I hope I'm clear what I'm looking for, honorable members. Otherwise, we're unable to close the meeting. I need a mover and seconder for adoption of the report. And if there's any objection, then we register.
I move that the report be adopted.
Honorable Kumbu, for adoption.
I second him, Honorable Chair.
Honorable Mtagana seconds. Any objection in us adopting the report? No objection, so the report is agreed to. And that would have been the last item for the evening. Am I correct?
That's correct, Chairperson.
All right, thanks. This therefore takes us to the point that indeed we have done well executing the business of the committee. This marks the end and for the meeting, it's official agenda. Thank you. Good night.